These are truly settlement videos. They are not, in and of themselves, day-in-the-life videos, and it's important to understand the distinction. In a settlement video, we always have a letter that accompanies the video that's an attachment that's being sent to opposing counsel and a mediator. In that letter, we make very clear that this is only for settlement purposes. It's not for trial. And because of that, we're allowed to be a little bit more liberal in what we could include in a settlement video because we don't have to worry about evidentiary rulings. So, we could be more broad in our presentation of damages than maybe a judge would allow us to be with respect to a jury. But it gets the point across in a very, very powerful way. Essentially what we're doing through a settlement video is we're showing the other side in the most intimate way possible and frankly the most comprehensive way possible what a trial is going to be like and who the players are that the jury will see to evaluate the claim. And so for that, Mitchell, is there anything you want to add to that distinction?
No, I think that nailed it. We have a much broader playing field. I know there's a common train of thought, I think, in a lot of these cases that I've worked on is working towards trial. I know David Ball talks about that in his book, and a lot of people talk about working towards trial. And I just want to say that I think working towards trial is valuable in some cases, but so often I think you're skipping over a valuable opportunity, which is mediation. We have a much broader playing field. We can include much more information, and we've had great success with these to date. And I think attorneys who are serious about mediation really owe it to themselves to take a look at these type of tools.
All right, Matt, why don't you click on the frames here? Actually, go back one, please. Okay. So they're different from day-in-the-life videos, as I mentioned. Of course, day-in-the-life videos can be part of the overall settlement video. Whether you have a degloving injury, you have someone with CP, and you're showing the caring that takes place day, night, that's critically important, and that raw footage is necessary to be used at trial. So that part of the video needs to be preserved appropriately pursuant to your local rules of civil procedure to be sure that you can introduce that powerful video at trial. It humanizes the case. It's designed for cases with significant damages, and by that we mean you're not going to be spending, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a settlement video if your case is worth relatively little. However, I'm telling you that in my practice and all of the leading attorneys in the metropolitan area where I work, there is not a single case with significant damages where we do not use a settlement video. And I tell people now when I travel throughout the country talking about settlement videos that I almost believe it's tantamount to legal malpractice to not incorporate a settlement video in your mediation efforts. At a minimum, we ought to be talking to our clients about what it is and what the value of it may be to the case so that the client can make a fully informed decision as to whether the funds ought to be allocated to a tool like this that can be so powerful. Next. All right. Why don't you talk about this, Mitch?
Yeah, sure. This is who and when to videotape. Remember that the primary goal of these videos is to humanize the case so that we're not able to say, let's settle case number 27, or this is the next one up on the docket. We want to make sure that we're talking about your specific case and your specific set of players. That might seem obvious, but I have to say that the single thing that these do is they get us next to your plaintiff. And sometimes your plaintiff may or may not be the best person to talk about their case. Sometimes, especially if there's a brain injury or some debilitating injury, the person that we actually want to interview is the primary caregiver. So if we go in to even do a simple day in the life, a lot of times we'll try and find out what the story is from the person, even the home nurse or the husband who's taking care of them, because they have a much more objective view about what's going on. This is what makes her happy. This is what a good day is like. This is what a bad day is like. And I usually always recommend filming the primary caregiver, whoever that is. Sometimes it's a family member, sometimes it's not. Yeah.
What you're looking at here, folks, is a list. It's not intended to be a comprehensive list, but a list of potential people that you might want to videotape and use as part of the overall settlement video. The picture of the woman that you're seeing is actually a doctor, and I highly recommend that you take video deposition of defendants in your cases and critical witnesses, because the transcript is simply not going to be nearly as compelling to an insurance company representative who's making a decision on settlement, and obviously not as compelling to a jury. And you can see here that that video picture is not a very attractive picture in terms of the quality of the lighting, the clothes that she's wearing. Even the color of her clothing is the wrong color for sympathy. But we don't have a problem with that, right? Because this is a defendant. And so we're not going to go out of our way to prep somebody to do what they need to do to look their best and appear their best in a video. Let's go to the next slide.
This is the power of actual footage here. Yeah, this is the power of actual footage. So what we're going to show you is, we're being videotaped everywhere. Sal, I think this was your case where you were able to find some actual video, or maybe it was someone else in your firm, but you were able to find some actual video that was on a government building of this intersection. And the video differed greatly from the statement of the bus driver. And I just want to warn you, these images are a little bit graphic. So
yeah, this is a case that we had. Let me interject here. This is a case, and you're going to see a person be run over by a bus. This video we did find from a local building, and let's just always remember as lawyers that we need to seize the video that's out there as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
And so you could see how powerful this can be in a case. Let's go ahead and load it and show it.
And it's everywhere, right, Sal? I mean, everyone that probably listening to this has a high-definition video camera in their pocket. We sometimes don't think about how docs performing surgery have video. A lot of them will take video of complicated cases. I've gotten video from surgery on more than one occasion. But many, many government buildings will have video cameras that run all the time. Gas stations, security places. So we were able to get a witness, and you'll see he's a very credible witness. But to illustrate the witness's testimony or his view of what happened with actual footage is very powerful. Go ahead.
So Matt, right now, Matt, I see there's a green bar going across. Does that mean it's just taking its time to load?
It's ready now.
Yeah, it's a rather large file.
Okay. Well, Matt, just let us know when it's ready to go. I'll speak in the meantime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Mine's playing now. Is it not playing for everybody?
Not playing for me. But as long as everyone else can see it.
Well, for those of you that are watching it now or are able to see it, I can tell you that the video highlights, we put text right on top of the screen. The video highlights two women who were crossing within the crosswalk, and a bus turned left and ran over them. I think they were probably lost in the A-pillar of the bus. And then we cut to the doctor who supports the witness's testimony. And all of these testimonies are illustrated with our video. So we have the testimonies going under the video images going on top of the video, and then finally, forensically, we were able to blow up the video to, I think I said 300 or 400%, to show that there was actual motion of one of the victims on the road after their witness claimed that she died instantly. So we were able to see that there was actually some movement, which supported what the cab driver said. And without
that's an important reason. Let me. I'm sorry, Mitchell, but let me interject there. That's critically important about using someone who really is a sort of a movie producer and filmmaker, because if you're just using a videographer to go ahead and put together a settlement video, I think you're throwing your money down the drain, or at a minimum, you're certainly not maximizing your potential. This is storytelling. It's also forensic analysis that's being done. And what we did here is and Mitchell, you did it actually. It was your thought. It was to blow this video up to a much higher level, and we were able to show very subtly, admittedly, but we were able to show movement of the sort of, I call it the pixels. Mitchell Mitchell. I'm not sure that's the right terminology.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Which corresponded to some witness testimony about movement of the victim, which, of course, the bus driver and the defendants were denying, and also their pathologists were denying could have taken place. So that was very powerful. Is your video done, Mitchell?
Yeah, mine's been done a while, Matt. Should we just go to the next slide?
All right, let's just keep going then.
So this next one, as it's loaded, I can tell you a little bit more. This is another example of video footage that's coming in. This footage was a little different because this was a camera that was mounted in the front of a campus bus. And this shows, again, it's a little severe, so if you have trouble with that, you may want to look away for this slide. This is a young lady who was crossing the intersection and was hit by a guy who was speeding around a stopped campus bus. Sal, I think this is your case, right?
It is, and it is hard to see. This is what you're going to see if it hasn't started already. You're going to see a woman, student, come from right to left in front of the bus in a crosswalk at a busy street on a campus in Virginia. She's going to get struck by a speeding vehicle that is coming to the left of the bus, and she's going to be struck. Her head is going to hit the windshield. She's going to be thrown into the air about 15 feet, and then down the road about another 45 feet. So for some of you may want to turn away. It's hard to see, but you can imagine when I went to try to obtain the video to see if it existed and then use it, I was I was pleased to know that the video existed. You can imagine the impact that it had during mediation. So,
but there's a ton of this stuff. There's a ton of this stuff out there, isn't there, Sal? I mean, police officers, of course, have the cam in the front of their car, but more and more taxi drivers are having it. I've used them in trucking cases. If you have a trucking case, I'm sure you all know this, but it's absolutely worth it to try and find out if there's a camera. Sometimes there's a camera of the driver as well as the front of the truck. But all of this is very, very useful in mediation. And we break it down forensically, as you'll see in this video. Again, we'll freeze frame it. We'll show circles on it. And this was a no-fault state, right, Sal? This was a state that said basically because she was running across the intersection, she was to blame as much as the driver. Is that right?
Right. In Virginia, it's a contributory negligence jurisdiction. So if you're deemed to be, even on a small level, a contributor, a cause to the overall incident, you'd be barred from recovery. And so getting this video was very, very useful. And as Mitchell said, we often use the video, slow it down, show the color of the light, and freeze that from the perspective of the driver, the defendant driver. We talk about the lanes of traffic. We really use the video as an illustration, not only of the damage, but of the liability. But why don't we move ahead now to the next one?
Mitch and Sal, just a question real fast. I do have the ability to make the videos full screen when we play them. Would you like that? Do you think that would help?
That's fine. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm not able to see it, and I hope that's not the case for most of the viewers. But the loading process is just very slow from my end. Mitchell's getting it. That's good news.
Okay, the slide's up.
And I'm still waiting for the next slide. Here we go. The value of reenactments. Okay, this is a case where, Mitchell, you talked about an A-frame blocking a pedestrian. This is a case where somebody was coming across a bus, and they were claiming that because of the design of the bus and the A-frame, it was impossible to see the pedestrian. Anything you want to add to the facts of that, Mitchell?
Yeah, we put the camera at eye height of the bus driver. We had a actress who was the same size and weight of the victim. And again, this is not a survey. This is giving us the idea. But again, in mediation, we have a little bit more leeway. We could have opted to do a $60,000 survey with a 3D animation and getting this, but I think this was much cheaper for us to get an actress who was of the same height and weight, have her walk through, and we get it. And it was very successful. I think it was a very crucial part of the video, and it was a big part of this case settling. But see, we get the idea. We can see her walking across. We can see that she's very highly visible. We have this narrated with the expert under it. Again, we're illustrating the expert, not the other way around. So it plays very nicely.
Great. Next.
We can move on. This Sal, was your case with the illustration right in the video with the expert. So that again,
okay.
we had a sample of the injury that he was able to hold up instead of us paying for a moving animation.
Right, and so we
then
did
the video's loading. It'll be playing here in a couple seconds.
Okay. While we're waiting for that, I'll just echo that we use medical illustrations all the time in our cases. I highly encourage anyone who has a case involving even a smaller injury like a broken bone that might even heal in 8 weeks. But if you have fixation devices or you have degloving injuries, illustrations are critically important. Any case that involves surgery, you want to do that. They're relatively inexpensive. But then you want to incorporate them into your settlement video where you're not just showing the illustration, you have an expert talk about them. And it's very interesting, and it's also very useful for a case evaluation, which is, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the decision makers on the defendant's side to evaluate the case fully and fairly. Let me know.
You'll see in this one we actually pull up the X-ray over the doctor's shoulder, much like you see on the evening news. It's a very comfortable way for us to see the illustration. It's a very comfortable way for us to support the doctor's testimony. We could go to the next slide if you want to. Did you get it?
It should be playing now.
Okay.
Let me try to play it again.
There you go.
There we go. We should be playing now.
You see, we have the expert there, and we have an illustration of the X-ray showing where the metastatic cancer is taking place. But this keeps us connected with the expert. It shows us what he's talking about. We feel connected with him. We can see his eyes. We can see his honesty. And this method of display is very familiar to us. It's like the evening news.
Matt, can the folks who are watching this hear the audio? Or are they
I believe so. Yeah, if they are listening through their speakers. Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide, please.
Is your case there, Sal? That's the see the images there. Is that a still there, Matt?
It's just a singular image. Yep, a still.
Okay. This is the degloving injury. Is that what we're supposed to be looking at?
Yeah, that's a still image though. So, but that's
okay.
Again, that's an illustration used in the video where we're able to show the X-ray, the actual injury, the illustration of the injury, and we just put it right in the settlement video.
And actually, what we did here too is we had the orthopedic surgeon. I had this in front of the orthopedic surgeon who was talking about these injuries, and that was incorporated into this particular settlement video. Because if you look at this X-ray, you're looking at a woman's lower extremity, and her foot is bending backward where it's supposed to come down and then appear out to the left. Instead, it's being held together really by the skin because she almost had a complete amputation of the lower part of her leg. And so when you have an expert explain all that and show you what the positioning is supposed to look like on an X-ray, and you couple that with an illustration that shows what she's looking like if you were, standing right next to her and appreciating her injuries, that's very powerful testimony. Why don't we go to the next slide?
Mm-hmm. So this is basically what if you weren't able to get a video deposition, and we went by it before maybe a little quickly, but video depositions are so crucial because as Sal said, if you read the transcript and you see the person's face, sometimes the exact opposite of what you think is true is true. You can get a much better idea of someone's honesty, their character. And if you really wish you had videotaped something, all is not lost. We actually can take those transcripts and voice them over. And I believe that's what this next video is going to be. It's a voiceover while showing the text of the transcript. It's a very simple idea, but it does bring the transcript to life.
Mine's loading again slowly, but I think what you're going to be seeing here is a voiceover of medical, technical questions and answers in a deposition. And what's important here, and again, if you're using a good filmmaker, they would be advising you to be sure that the person who's doing the voiceover is someone who's about the same age, certainly the same gender, as the deponent. And you don't want the answers to be dramatized in a way that's distracting. You want the voice to be clear. You don't want the tone to be slanted in any way. You want it to make it look natural. And that's very, very important.
The video should be playing now.
Yep. It also, I think, makes the information go down a little easier. Just so I understand, I want to see if I can summarize.
So those listening through their computer speakers should be hearing the audio.
Great.
I'm
just waiting for this to end. Okay, so mine has ended. Is that all timed at the same time, Matt?
Yes, it should be done for everybody.
Okay. Okay, so you get the idea there.
Yeah, and so what's important too there is that even my questioning was being voiced over by somebody because I suppose I wasn't available for the recording of it, and that's not a problem. But again, you don't want to make this overly dramatic. The testimony itself should be what's dramatic and compelling. If you turn this into something that looks sensational, even if it's one part of a longer video, you're going to diminish the entire video and the value of it. So a simple example of that is when you're showing maybe the day in the life portion of it, don't put music on in the background. That's not necessary. Don't get crazy with music in the introduction. Make sure your audio and your visual are very well done. So, in fact, you can have a beautifully projected settlement video, but if the audio is poor, it's going to lose its value completely.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of that later. I just want to highlight that again, what Sal said there, is that if you tend to make these over-dramatized, sometimes I think people feel obligated to make these dramatic, and they think that the purpose of these is to somehow dramatize your plaintiff's plight. And I would really encourage against that. If there wasn't something to talk about, we wouldn't all be here. As soon as you start to spin this out of control, or if it gets too heavy-handed, you start to do the opposite, which is suggest you don't have a case and that you have to somehow embellish it, and then your viewer is going to be so much more critical of all the information that comes in. We try and not put music in. We don't make it overly milky, and you're much better off to just have a dry message or a message that comes with a little bit of humor at the top. And I can get into some of the humor stuff later on, but that's worth remembering. We can go to the next one if you want.
Yeah, while we go to the next one, I always say be careful, too, with the humor. You want it to be, when you're dealing with catastrophic injuries like trial, we're very careful about infusing humor into the trial. But whatever you're going to do, just make it look genuine.
But at the beginning,
will speak for itself if it's presented correctly.
Exactly. I mean, at the beginning, like if you notice in this view here, this is the value of home footage here. This is home video, and if you look at the home video footage that we chose, it's where he's goofing around with this baby. Can you play that again, Matt? And studies show
is this the New York Times reporter case that I had?
That's right. Yeah, this is
So this is a death case, a very tragic death case.
That's right. And you see where he's goofing with the baby. Studies say that you get to know someone faster through their sense of humor than through any other way. And if we were to put an overly sad clip of the father, of the decedent, I don't think it would have been as effective as this happy-go-lucky kind of lovable guy. And when we meet an injured party, if we meet someone who's a quadriplegic or paraplegic, a lot of times at the beginning of the video, I'll try and get them to take me far away from the events and what happened, so that we get to know the person first, because you're going to feel so much more for someone that you enjoy. You're going to feel so much more deeply for someone whose personality you enjoy than you are for someone who whines and complains about their situation all the time. As valid as their whining may be, if we can get to know the person first before we find out their plight, I think it's much more effective in a mediation settlement environment.
I completely agree.
Are we
done with that one? Okay.
Yeah. This is more home video. This is such a poetic case. This, again, is the girl who got hit by the bus, Sal. Do you want to talk about her background a little bit? And how,
yeah, real quickly I could tell you, mine is still loading, but I think we're showing ultimately some video of her dancing. And this is a student. She was a freshman at the time of the incident at a Virginia school. She was considered by the dance instructor there to be the single best freshman dancer in the history of the school. She had an extraordinarily bright future at the time of the incident, and she suffered a very tragic brain injury, made a pretty darn good recovery under the circumstances, but will never be the same. And so what we did here is we had the family gather together, old video, showing us who she is. And, of course, dance was a core part of her life. And that's what you're seeing, I think.
And home video is worth its weight in gold. Whenever I start a new case, one of the first things I ask, especially if there's a traumatic brain injury, if there is, regardless of the injury, if there is home video footage of this person where they're moving, talking, laughing, interacting with their family, that I can juxtapose to the person, the injured party now, it's dynamite. There's no replacement for that. So usually the first thing I ask is, do we have any home video footage? So that should be one of your first questions if you're ever considering making one of these videos. Mine's at about 60% now. How are you guys?
For some reason, this video is taking a while to load. I'm not sure if it's a network issue or the file size, but I'm going to continue to try to get it.
It might be bigger. It might be one of the bigger ones. We see Bria dancing. We see her mother was very good at videotaping her dance recitals. So we had a ton of footage of her dancing really well in different recitals.
I'll tell you real quickly a vignette about this particular settlement. Is we had people come into my office, and we went through this, and I'm telling you, the insurance representative, the supervisory representative who was making the call at the end of the day on whether this case would resolve or not, was almost in tears. And he'd already seen the video before showing up. So he's in my conference room. There's about 10 of us in there. And he spoke before opposing counsel did. And he referenced this settlement video with truly almost with tears running down his face. He was absolutely watered up, and he was moved by what he saw. I'll tell you another quick vignette while this is still loading. Tell me to stop speaking once it gets going, Mitchell, because I can't see it. I had a case where the defendants showed up with their counsel, and they had not yet seen the video that I had given to them many weeks earlier. And so I asked the mediator, I said, I want you to poll them, every single last one of them, the president of the bus company, the lawyers that are there, and, of course, the insurance representatives to find out if they've seen this video. And don't you know it, the only person that had seen it was the lawyer. And then he put together some sort of summary of it, and that's what they were basing their analysis on, their evaluation of the case. Well, I told the mediator that we're not going to spend a second talking about settlement until they go into my library and where I have the video capacity, and I said they can watch it here for 30 minutes. I think it was 24 minutes long. Or they could leave. They can go watch it on their own time, and then they're going to have to certify to you, Judge, that they have actually seen it before I'm ever willing to speak to them again about settlement. Well, they took me up on the offer, went into the library, and watched the video. Shortly thereafter, we began negotiation. By the end of the day, they came up with a number. And that number was the full authority with which they came that particular day. I told the mediator, the judge who was the mediator, that I'm convinced that now that they've seen the video, that there's more money that they should be paying on this case, that they'd be willing to pay. 2 weeks later, and maybe a week later, absolutely no more than 2 weeks later, they put another $1.75 million on the case. And folks, I didn't make another argument. I didn't introduce another page of evidence. I didn't speak to anybody other than wait around for the mediator to call me back saying, Sal, they want to talk to you again. And so, and we had one of the best mediators in the entire region. So this is the magnitude of the power of a properly done, effective settlement video. Has it played yet?
Great. I think that played, while you were there. So I think we could go to the next slide, Matt.
Was too large to play, so if you want to just describe what this video is, it's just it's too large for the network that we're on.
I'll go ahead and do that. This was actually an extraordinarily powerful piece of the settlement video, and again, it involved the young woman that was hit by a bus. You as a lawyer can put something in writing, and you can be on the phone or you could be face to face and make an argument about the damages. And you could explain what it was like at the hospital for this young woman and her family over and over again. And it could be pretty darn compelling. You're all excellent storytellers. That's what trial lawyers are. But none of us, and I mean not a single one of us, is as good as that same description coming from a family member or a friend, someone with credibility. And that is not nearly as powerful as actual video of what it was like. So here what we did is we started out, and I had a description, of course, in the cover letter about what this is all about. But then Dad comes on the settlement video, and he talks about how his daughter at the hospital and for some time later was perseverating, meaning that she always felt like she needed to urinate. She had a very significant brain injury. And her mom later, I don't know if this is on this slide or a different one, talks about how at the hospital and at the recovery center, she was seeing blue people at the end of her bed. And Dad's talking about how she's coming in and out of closets, she's going in and out of the room into the hallway, thinks she's going into a restroom after, she's coming out of the restroom and then turning around wanting to go right back in. But then we showed, and that was powerful, but then we showed the video. Through their phone, they captured on video what she was doing at the hospital. Over and over again.
That goes back to my earlier comment that the father said while we were filming him there, almost as an afterthought, I think I took some video of her perseveration in the hospital. Would you be interested in that? And, I said, of course. And he said, it's bad video. I took it on my cell phone. But the difference in having that video and not having that video is, it's like day and night. For us to see, as Al said, for us to hear her father describe watching his daughter, perseverate was horrific. But to actually see the footage of it just changes the whole nature of the case. I guess we can't get that to play.
No, but we can move on. Yep, let's move on. All right. Well, I'll put a.
Yeah.
Mitchell, let me just add here. This is so important. I used to spend tons of money on a company in another part of the country to come out here and put together settlement videos, and they were pretty good. We had they were certainly better than nothing. But then I realized that I am not getting 60 minutes level, excellent filmmaker productions. And to maximize my client's recovery, that's really what I should be doing. And so, Mitchell's been doing it for me for years. And Mitchell, why don't you talk about how important this stuff is? Because you could see it as a lawyer representing your clients, how important these issues are to maximize.
There are some very basic things that your videographer absolutely must know. And anybody who's been to film school, these are film school 101 things. And these were very common mistakes I saw when we first entered this space. We were documentary filmmakers working or making documentary films. We helped on Hot Coffee, the movie. But we sort of fell into this space after talking to Sal, and there were a lot of basic things I think that were missing. One of the things were production experience, meaning that you should be able to come into a place, figure out where the best person is to where the best place is to sit this person and interview them in a very short amount of time. You need to pay attention to things like sound, where the lighting should be, where the power is, what audio you're going to use at this location, what your plaintiff is wearing, and you need to do this all within a couple of minutes. But you'll see some of the things I put in the list here. Audio, as Sal mentioned before, is a number one priority. You should absolutely require of your videographer that they have some microphone other than the one on the camera, whether it's a boom mic that they can put on a stand towards the mouth of your plaintiff, or I think it's much more easier to just use a lavalier or a body mic. But they absolutely need an off-camera microphone. There are very common lighting principles, three-point lighting. I talk about it on my website, but there are three-point lighting principles that should be adhered to. The difference between three-point lighting and not having three-point lighting is tremendous. Clothing, I put a couple of examples here of clothing mistakes. Red on video is terrible. Orange is terrible. Unless you're going for that sort of bleedy, vibrant look. Luckily, the doctor in one of our previous slides, she was on the other side and she was wearing red, so that was delightful. But for our side, blue is the best color for video. Red is the worst. I also put a image of a very tightly patterned blazer and a tightly checkered shirt. They will vibrate like taffeta on video sometimes. And just in general, you want to avoid big print, big, bold, distracting print. You see on the bottom right side, I put a big plaid that would make a huge statement about the person wearing that. We can go to the next slide, Matt. I think
let me make a quick point about location, because location is critically important. If you're deposing, if you're taking a video of your doctor or your client's doctor or the expert that you have retained, don't do it with the doctor, in a polo shirt. Do it with the doctor's whites on. Have it be in his or her office, if possible, with maybe some medical text or an illustration or a model or something that looks sophisticated behind him or her. Make it impressive. And the angle of the video is going to be important. Whether you don't shoot down on the doctor, because then the doctor looks like the subordinate. If anything, you want the angle to be slightly up, or at least eye level with the physician. The other thing is your client. Be very careful, folks, to not overcoach your client.
Right.
Your client wants to please you, and you want specific testimony, don't you, for your damages presentation. And you might come up with these sayings that you want them to say that describes how they feel, and don't forget to use this word or that word. So here's what I recommend in terms of location and prep. Have the video be taken at the person's home, if at all possible. They are at their most comfortable in that environment. Sometimes, of course, you're going to have to take the video at a rehab facility or at a hospital, depending upon the severity of the disability, but be at their home. Make sure that there's not a million people at the house when you go there, and the place isn't a mess in the room that you're going to be, and people aren't going to be coming in and out. Make sure the phone is disconnected. You're not going to get a ring at the time of some really good testimony that's coming out. And then get out of the way. Get out of the way. How they, in their heart, want to describe what they endured is, I'm telling you, the best description of what they actually endured. It's not your phrase. And if you use someone who actually cares about the product, like Mitchell, as opposed to someone who's just caring about getting the video over with and getting the paycheck, that person's going to dedicate the kind of time that's necessary to peel from the person the true description that they want to say, in the manner they want to say it, and in the cadence, the whole in the context they want to describe it. And if you're patient enough as a videographer, it'll come out over time, and then you'll be able to use it in the most powerful way you can. We can go to the next slide.
This is an example of what you just said.
And please understand, I am prepping my client, but now I get out of the way. I don't even go to the homes of my clients anymore. I send Mitchell there, and everyone's on the same page. We know what we're looking for. But, take your time, have them explain things the way they want to explain it, and it comes out. What are we looking at here?
we're looking at the woman describing how this was a wrongful life case, which was very tricky. Daughter has a very severe brain deficit, and she's talking about the impact on the whole family. But again, these are questions I never, frankly, would have known to have asked. She offered this information because we were able to empower her with the interview. Being there with the camera and having patience, we are validating her experience, validating what she's going through. She's very eager to dump it and to have someone hear what she does on a day-to-day, what she does day in, day out. She's a nurse. I mean, she's seen a lot of stuff. But this is a very effective interview, mostly because we just shut up and listened. And I can't stress that enough. It validates your client like nobody's business if you'll just be quiet with them and listen to everything they have to say.
Let me know when it's over, and then I'll make
it's done. We could go on to the next one.
Well, let me just make the point, too, that some of you may be thinking when you're watching that, well, that's not going to be, that particular statement's not going to be admissible at trial. And she's talking about her other daughter and the impact on the other daughter having to grow up much more quickly because her younger daughter is so disabled. And that's not going to be admissible in my jurisdiction. My point to you is, who cares? Who cares? It is absolutely relevant to the practical analysis of the loss of this family. This is a settlement video. What we're doing, as much as anything else, is introducing the people to the defendants, not just the admissible testimony. And the people here are so special through these stories and these descriptions. And that's why you can be a little more liberal than you normally would be in a day-in-the-life video or how you can be in the well of a courtroom.
One other thing I want to add to this, I think the key to getting an interview like this, Sal, is that you really want the number of people in the room to be at a minimum. I know the tendency is for the attorney to come and maybe for a paralegal to come, and then if the videographer comes and brings a sound person, and sometimes the interviewee wants their spouse present, and before you know it, there's an audience of 8 or 10 people, and it really inhibits an honest heart-to-heart talk. It should be you and the client, or the videographer and the client over a cup of coffee, and maybe their attorney present. But again, I think the number of people should be as few as possible, so we can be as open and as honest as possible. And I'm constantly reminding my client that this is for 8 or 10 people. This is not for streaming on YouTube. This is an intimate conversation, and it should stay that way. It just feels more honest.
And again, I'm in favor of the lawyer not being there, because what will happen is, and do your prep beforehand, do it well, prep your client, prep the videographer, and then get out of the way. Because if you're standing there, the client is going to be compelled to look at you and keep looking for reassurance that the answers were appropriate and to your satisfaction. That is a distraction, and it never gets them to fully open up. All right, let's go to the next slide. I feel like we need to start going a little bit quicker through these slides, Mitchell.
Yep. This is the thing. You can go past this slide. We've covered this already.
Okay. Yep.
Similar thing to the experts. Sal talked about eyeline before. We talked about what to wear. You can see the guy in the golf shirt in the middle. He actually is a doctor. But we want to see people in their natural environment. We'll get it if they're in your boardroom. I know the tendency is, if you're worried about how the home looks, you want to get them in your boardroom and make them look in a respectable environment. I get that. But we have to, for a split second, adjust to say, oh, they're not in their home, they're in a boardroom. And I just always say that split second is wasted time. I think we want to see a doctor in a doctor's office with something white or books behind them, and we want to see your client in their home. And if it's someone in a nursing home, we want to see them in their natural habitat.
And look at that last picture of the physician on the right there at the bottom. I mean, he still has his. Actually, I can't see the picture there.
Stethoscope at the bottom.
It looks like that's a stethoscope, right? But the point is,
yep.
You know, you could say to yourself as a lawyer, do I tell him to keep that around his neck or not? And in this particular instance, we decided, keep it around your neck. It shows that you're doing this for this client because you feel it's important to do, but you're busy. You're an active, practicing, trusted doctor. So anyway, we can go to the next slide.
This is basic lighting principles. We talked about them already. We could go past this, Matt.
Okay.
Getting the most out of your expert. We talked about this. We could go past this. We sometimes voice over the expert CV. Sometimes we'll do a freeze frame on your expert and talk about his years of being the chief of whatever at whatever hospital. And instead of having them talk about their CV online, live, sometimes it's more successful to voice it over. We could go to the next slide.
Yep, let's go to the next one.
These we talked about. You want to have a filmmaker. You want to have a person who understands what these terms mean, how to mix your audio. I put at the top because, again, audio is most important. If you're filming at a location that is in a large metropolitan area, if you're filming at a location that's next to a firehouse or next to an airport, you want to take all these things into consideration because bad audio, if the audio is bad, we feel disconnected from your plaintiff and we don't know why. If the audio is good, we won't think about it. So audio is absolutely crucial. Yeah.
Let me make a quick point here about editing because, folks, you might end up settling for a bad product if you don't get the right deal from the folks that you're using to put together the settlement video. A lot of these companies, what they want to do is charge you X for getting the video and putting together their cut of it, and they feel like, you know what, there it is, and that's the money you gave me is for that product, and if you want to manipulate this product, I'm going to be charging you more money. That is not the way that they should be doing business. You need to strike a deal that says that the editing portion of it is going to be part of the overall price. Now, there's some line that you might cross as a lawyer in terms of, you changing your mind for the 10th time, you want to add something new. That might be, another video of another expert. Sure, that might cost some additional money. But if we're only manipulating the rough cut and editing it to its final draft, that is something that your videographer and your filmmaker, I should say, is willing to do for you if they're worth it. If they're the kind of company that you want to be dealing with, because invariably, I don't care who you use, some manipulation is always going to be warranted. And Mitchell and I do it online where he's on the phone and we have the time count of the video, and I might say to him, take out from 5 minutes 4 seconds through 5 minutes of 15 seconds and paste that in at 13:04 through 13:09 or whatever it might be. And he and I might even go back and forth from a filmmaker perspective. He'll say, Sal, I can see why you want to do that from a legal perspective. Let me tell you what it does to the story. And he might persuade me that I'd rather keep the story the way it was. Or he may say, Sal, great idea, and I can do that, and I can make it seamless. Anyway, let's go to the next slide.
But Sal, that's absolutely right. That is absolutely when your film gets made, and that is absolutely when your film becomes effective, from merely documenting what's going on to becoming an effective tool for your mediation. And if you're paying someone by the hour, you're actually going to be paying more for someone who knows less at what they're doing. I think to ask for a package price is absolutely doable for anyone in this business, and you should absolutely look into that because these prices can go nuts if you're paying someone by the hour.
This narrative editing frame, is this video going already?
It's going on, but I think it's loading on others.
Could you pause it for a second, Matt?
This is the you know what this is? This is the one where the deposition of the doctor misstated the size of her diameter.
Okay, so this is the glaucoma case. Again, I can't see it, but I know what you're all about to be looking at. Here's a young girl she was an infant, and they misdiagnosed congenital glaucoma. They thought that the child had allergies instead. And so what we did here, and we talked, one of the critical parts of the case was the size of the cornea, the child's cornea at the time of the evaluation. And she had a 12-millimeter size diameter of her cornea, which is in the high-risk level for glaucoma, which means you need to do further follow-up evaluations, okay? We knew that, of course, after taking all the depositions, including the depositions of the experts in the case. So there's two ways or more that you can handle this in a settlement video. You can get right to what the doctor said, and then you can say, well, look at what the experts are saying. Look at what the experts, their expert is saying. Or you could do what we did here, which Mitchell convinced me to do, which was a much more compelling story, which is you set up so obviously and plainly what the standard of care is. And we did this very well through the defendant's own expert, our expert, and the defendant's corporate representative of the hospital himself. And then we bring in this video of the defendant, who of course was not properly prepped in terms of what she should be wearing, and who of course we did not pay extra money for to get high quality video. And she came in, and her testimony just flies directly in the face of the standard of care. And that is the end of that segment, and it's much more powerful that way. So go ahead and play it, Matt.
Is yours playing, Matt?
It is. It might be a little. What does it look like on your screen, Mitch?
It says waiting for playback.
Yeah, it's playing. It might take a little bit of time to load here.
Okay. Let me know when it's done.
It's playing on my screen. Not sure if it's playing on anybody else's screen, but I just reloaded it to see if it will play.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a mirror screen going on, and it looks like for some reason the system, it's playing on the controlled system fine, but then on participants, you guys are just seeing a black screen, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing nothing.
Yeah. Mitch, are you seeing anything?
Mitchell, are you seeing anything?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I'm not seeing anything. It says waiting for playback.
Yeah, I think there's an issue with it. I'll try to finagle it, but why don't we move on to the next slide? I'll try to play it later on towards the end of the program.
We've explained the video.
Evidentiary rules is the next one we could go to.
One's huge, so it's not gonna. The system is not gonna play it. I'll move on to evidentiary rules. There we go.
Perfect. Sal, do you want to talk about those?
I don't have the screen yet.
Okay, it should have. Let me see. Oh, we lost you, Sal. Let me see. We lost your. For some reason, we lost your connectivity to the meeting, but it basically says FRE 1001 parentheses 2 R.401.
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
R.901.
Yeah. These are the evidentiary rules in summary form. Again, when you're dealing with the settlement video, we don't have to be burdened by these rules too much. But of course, with respect to the day in the life portion of it, again, you do want to make sure that you're abiding by your local and the federal rules if you're in federal court. As long as you take these rules and be mindful of them, you'll be fine. We can go to the next screen.
That's it. We have that, and it says, 403 illustrations must be accurate. So the final thoughts we have here are basically, they may seem commonsensical, but you want to keep it both short and long enough. Short is, of course, we're always dealing with an attention span. But some of these videos get into specifics that need a moment or two to explain. If it's a compelling video, if it's honestly told, if we're not milking this story and if we're not trying to oversell you, we can listen to something for 35, 40 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're not a victim of a 15-minute rule, that this has got to be 15 minutes no matter what. Each video, each case needs to sort of find its own length. That being said, of course, you don't want to make it too long, you don't want to make it boring, you want to make it compelling, and you want to make it move. But I think it's okay for these to be sometimes as long as 35, 40 minutes. Most importantly,
I would agree with that.
You can talk about the need to submit these ahead of time so that the other side can actually bring a checkbook coming to mediation.
Yeah, that's critically important. Some folks are comfortable sending these things out a week ahead of time, and that might be sufficient. If it's a multi-million-dollar case, and sometimes even if it's a $200,000 case, they're not going to be able to run that video up the flagpole and be ready for a mediation a week later. My rule of thumb is get it done and out, delivered by FedEx, multiple discs delivered by FedEx, a disc for the main attorneys that have been involved. So if there's been 2 or 3 from a law firm or multiple law firms, get them all a separate disc. Have at least 2 or 3 discs for the insurance company, and have at least 2 discs for the defendant, the corporation, if you're suing somebody, some entity. And get it out, as I say, 3 weeks beforehand. There's nothing wrong with sending it out 4 weeks beforehand. Make sure the mediator has it well in advance of the mediation. Also, of course, if you sent it even a day beforehand, as long as the mediator had the 30 minutes or so to look at it, you're okay. You don't need to worry about that person collaborating with someone else to make decisions. But you ought not waste time. So if you have it ready for the others, get it out to the mediator at the same time.
And that's it. We've used up our time here, Matt. I don't know if there's time for questions, if you're able to entertain them from people listening.
We just have one question that is coming to me. You guys have talked about the benefits of using the settlement videos in your cases. Have you experienced any downside? Have there been any kind of pitfalls that you would like to make the attorneys aware of and how they can avoid them?
Sure. This is Sal. When I first started doing these things a long time ago, and I was relying upon others, and I was an associate attorney, I noticed that the lighting was bad, the audio wasn't perfect, if you're using interpreting, you want to make sure that is done effectively. As an example, I have a lot of Latino clients here. I like where you start with the person speaking in Spanish, and then you fade out their voice but keep the image, and then have a voiceover in English of the same gender and the same age, but very articulately saying in English what the person is saying in Spanish. That's very important, as opposed to having someone speak and then interrupt that person and have the interpreter of a different gender dispassionately interpreting the language, then going back to the Hispanic person again, and that kind of thing. But truly, as I've said before, the biggest mistake is over dramatization. I presided over this metro collision case here in D.C. where one train hit the back of another train in 2009, and a bunch of people were killed and injured. And I was privy to a settlement video that a lawyer did for another client in that case, and it was horrible. They used all kinds of music, and when describing the injuries, they did it in some sort of sensationalist voice, like some sort of game show host voice. It was so disingenuous and distracting that it had a completely negative value. They were seen as lawyers who didn't know what they were doing. In fact, they included as a defendant someone who had been dismissed voluntarily from the case after discovery was concluded. And it shows non-preparation. It shows the other lawyers that they're going to be able to have a field day with that law firm at trial. Don't do it, folks, if you're not going to do it right. It's not only a waste of money, but it will be hurtful.
It's funny, Sal, because I thought of the same example. I saw a video once where the interpreter was on screen with the victim, and the victim didn't have a microphone, but the interpreter did. So we spent the whole time watching the interpreter, which actually made us feel that the that the victim was a child who couldn't be taken care of, and there's no way you're going to trust this person with the amount of settlement that they were asking for, as though they couldn't take care of themselves. But again, these are very basic things that anyone with any film school training will easily avoid. I prefer people with film school training. I work with people from film school training. Sometimes in a broadcast setting, there's an urge to get in, get your message, hit your points, and get back out again because I've got 15 seconds or 30 seconds for this story. And sometimes I've personally found that long-form documentarians have a little more patience and are able to pick information out of a much larger body of source material. So that would be my suggestion.
Any other questions?
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions in the queue, so I just want to wrap up the program by saying if you'd like to speak with Mitchell about a case or project that you're working on, please feel free to contact us here at TASA, and we will put you in touch with him. We'll be sending out the link to the archive recording of this webinar tomorrow morning. It'll be in a video form. We'll also send out a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Then our next webinar for legal professionals applying human factors to liability cases will take place on September 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Mitchell and Sal, thank you so much for the time and effort that you put into this program. And for all those who attended, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend an hour with us. And I look forward to seeing everybody at future TASA events. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Is the room closed? You guys still there?